Today's project is my 2012 Jeep Patriot with a left headlamp on our left passenger side headlamp not working, and my handbrake light started blinking about a month ago and now it stays on all the time. Pittsburgh Pap here. I went to the Jeep forum and a very intelligent poster gave specific wiring diagram advice and said that I have a short, a common problem caused by a lack of ground. I know the bulb's not burnt out because I saved my old ones when I upgraded to brighter bulbs, and I used 2 different old ones in there, and I don't have 3 burned out bulbs after I was done swapping them out and with the brake light. So I googled that and I came across a guy who had the same exact thing, and he fixed his by repairing the ground. So now the project begins. We're going to cure, hopefully, the ground problem in my 2012 Chrysler Jeep Patriot. And here's the always on handbrake light. They call it a handbrake now because you can put it on with your hand, but when I was learning to drive, it was called emergency brake because it was on the floor and you operated it with your left foot, and the dimmer switch was on the floor, you operated that with your left foot. But now it's a hand brake because you can put it on with your hand. I use mine about twice a year if I'm parked on a steep slope, but so I know it's not a hand brake issue. I also checked out when it started blinking about a month ago. There was nothing hanging on the cable underneath, you know, like my exhaust was dropping down on or something like that. I couldn't find any interference. And then I found the post on the ground wire issue. We're starting out on the passenger side of the vehicle. We're going down into the frame right next to the alternator. And in the center of the picture is the attachment where the ground wires are attached to the frame for the ground. Try and get the light bright enough. And if you notice, hopefully, that I got to get my hand down in there. That's the nut right there, bolt. Right behind it is a crimp. And in that crimp there is a 1/4 inch of bare wire bundle, and it's crimped behind that again. That bare wire bundle, whenever I first came upon it, was green. So like most people see green wire, they want to clean them up, and that's what I did with the official electronic cleaner, and all the green came off. And then I also took a fat screwdriver and tried to make a bridge between where it was this crimp and here on that fat 1/4 inch of bare wires, just thinking maybe I could see contact using the screwdriver, and that didn't work. My headlamp didn't come on, so we have to snip that off. And that's what this is all about. Going back far enough in the wire bundle to get good wire and then reattaching it. Now you don't have a lot of wire to play with, so this could get real tricky depending on where the brake is, and it should be pretty close to the front. But having never done this before, it's going to be fun. So the first thing I did was gather up some tools, and I looked for my wire stripper. I bought one in the early 70s, and of course I can't find it. I haven't seen it for a couple years, so it might have got borrowed. When you have children, things get borrowed. So pair of wire cutters, a pair of needle nose with wire cutting capabilities, and a 10mm socket. Might end up using a box wrench depending on how tight it gets down in there, but it is 10mm. and a big pair of pliers for crimping eventually. And these ends, cable ends, they have a different name, but I forget what it is. Some kind of, yeah, connectors, butt connectors, I guess they're called. And these are left over from my "Where the Heck is the Fuse" on my Cub Cadet video. I had to buy a whole container of them. I only used one, so I have a bunch more. They're black and red, but they're all the same size and everything, so I'll probably use the black one. I may end up using 2 or 3 of these because the holes inside aren't that big, and that's a pretty fat bundle. And I also have a pocket knife in my pocket for getting the tape off, and maybe use it for wire stripping since I can't find my wire stripper. Okay, we're doing lefty loosey, getting the bolt out of the frame. And yes, I just ran in to the car to turn on the headlights just in case that bolt was corroded, and after I turned it and made fresh contact that it might actually work, but no. We're going to continue. That's what you're taking off. It's a nut. I thought it was a bolt that went down through the frame, but it's a nut that goes over a threaded stud. Threaded stud down in there. That must be welded in place or tacked in place or something on the other side. That's a stud. I thought it was going to be like a sheet metal screw that went down through there, but that's not the case. First time. It's not too hard to get off. You can't get a lot of movement on your ratchet depending on the length of the handle, but you keep bumping up against this yellow thing here. Now I've pulled the connector off the post, and I'm going to go in and turn the car on and see if it starts. I need to know before I cut this if I'm going to be able to drive the auto parts store to a mechanic if I get in over my head. There's about 10 things on this circuit, air conditioning, whatever, that uses the same ground bundle, and I don't want to get stuck in my driveway. We only got the one car, and it's a 4-mile walk to the auto parts store, so I have to kind of commit myself to making sure I have options. Everything worked as I needed to work. Car started up, radio played, AC came on. If I screw this up badly and can't finish the repair, I have options. I love options. There was no way for me to snip that close to the end with the tape still on it. I did 2 things. I spread the back clamp, the rear clamp, open so I could see and get my knife, my pocket knife, in there to start slicing the tape back, and I used it with the blade up facing me. There's the blade on the right, and going back along the wires like this to open up that tape. I don't think you'd be able to unwind it. I couldn't even find out where it started. So I sliced the tape back. Now I can see each individual wire, and if I have to cut 2 or 3 at a time, I tried cutting through the tape and with those wire cutters, and I couldn't get started, and that metal was in the way. And so I spread that rear clamp with the needle nose pliers. Took a couple minutes, and then put my knife blade parallel with the wire bundle and started working it back to expose the wires. I'll trim that excess tape off now. After peeling back the tape far enough I can spread those wires out, I count 9 that I now have to strip to reveal at least a 1/2 inch or more of copper. That's going to take some time. I'll probably have hours in this for sure because I'm no mechanic. Briefly thought about reusing this. Brought it out into the light and saw that the ends were soldered in, and it's not a crimp you can open and reuse. Well, you could probably slice it and dice it and try and reuse it, but all the butt ends were soldered into place. And then the rear crimp held the wires. There are two heavy wires, one medium wire, and the rest are light wires. So they're not all going to fit in those ends I have. So we're going to split them up best we know how. Okay, I spent about half hour, 45 minutes stripping back the wires anywhere between a fat ½ inch and an inch. Now I have bare ground wires, and we're going to start contemplating how we're going to get them hooked back up. I'm going to spray them with the CRC electronic cleaner first because my hands had glue, tape, glue from the tape and everything on them, and I want to make sure they're nice and bright before I start putting them back together. Time out for a band-aid. All that twisting on that wire, pulling those plastic coating off and everything, I worked up a blister, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a band-aid on that. The skin's all loose here. Now we're ready for the butt connectors. Definitely going to have to use more than one. All those wires won't fit in one. I don't really care how many I use, as long as they all make ground at the end. So I'm going to try and get as many as I can in here and crimp it. I wound the four that were closest together, including one of the big fat ones, maybe both big, yeah, one of the big fat ones. And I'll see if I can wound it around, twisted it so it comes to a point. I'll see if I can get all that to slide onto the connector, or into the connector. It actually went on there pretty easy. I still don't think I can get them all in there though, and I don't want to tempt it because I'll just be frustrating. I stopped turning it whenever I got at the same plane angle for going over that post, even though I don't know if it's going to reach it or not until after I crimp, which I'm getting ready to do with this pair of pliers. And after I crimp it with these pair of pliers, I may go get the vice grips and really put a binder on the dang thing. I'm pushing 70 and been in a lot of accidents, so I don't really have that much hand strength. So the vice grips have a cam in them which aids power, and I ended up smashing the living hell out of that crimp with these. And I'm going to put the butt end connector on the next set of wires, and I'm going to turn it so that the fat end is away from the fat end on this one, so the two skinny ends sides are even, so they'll both go over without interfering with each other. I'm going to explain that further here, getting out an example. Here's two ends together. You see how they fit flush because the crimp is on the outside. If I turn it the other way, they'll run into each other and get fat. So skinny end to skinny end side. Start twisting your wires at the bottom, and you can see I got my band-aid on now. I suggest you do that before you start, because that copper will get right to you. All that twisting. All these strip parts are different lengths. You start at the bottom, make sure you have all your remaining wires in it, and start at the bottom because a couple of them will be short. You want to make sure that they're gathered up nicely, and then work your way out to the end. Make a nice skinny point on it. And then of course we're thinking of down the road already about whether this is going to go over the post or not. And that'll be the exciting part, because plan B is going to involve a couple of wankles. I got a lot of copper back here. I'll figure something out. Okay, going to put the last butt end connector on. Next thing I'm going to do is fold up any excess wire outside that enters the hole area. Fold that back over so it doesn't interfere with the threading of the nut. Well, we're very fortunate. I wanted to use two black ones, but I forgot. We used a red one. Both hoops went over the stud. Now we're going to put our 10mm, sorry for the focus, nut back on. You want to get that stud nut nice and snug, but don't snap off your stud. Get it tight, but don't force it. Only one thing left to do now. Go in and turn on the lights. Perfectamundo! Pittsburgh Pap with another contagious repair, cantankerous, you know, the word in that. Oh, you know, man. They're not bad, folks. Brake light on the right there. Brake light off on the right there. Another perfectamundo. That grounding bundle will deteriorate with age and go bad and cause any manner of things to quit working. I didn't bother looking up what else was attached to it. It doesn't really matter. There's at least 9 things that'll stop working. The most common seems to be the brake light and the passenger side headlight. I am so relieved, and all I got was a blister. Didn't cost me anything because I already had those ends. Putting 2 ends on, 3 ends on. If you have smaller ones, no big deal. Just stack them in there, tie them down tight, and you're good to go. The most valuable tools in this repair were a good sharp pocket knife, taking care not to cut the end off your finger, and the vice grips for getting a good righteous crimp. I couldn't get enough power with the regular pliers. Evidently my wire cutters are pretty dull because I had a heck of a time snipping off the bad ends. Had to do them one at a time basically. I couldn't get the whole bundle in one shot. Separating your wires, stripping them off, takes time. Give yourself, well, I've been out here 3 hours. Of course I'm old and filming everything while I'm doing it and thinking about it because I've never done it before. You probably never did it before, but I'm telling you, it's doable. Pittsburgh Pap out. Check out my other YouTube videos. I have over 350 of them out there. A lot of do-it-yourself stuff. Lawnmower repairs, lawnmower reviews, unboxings. Everything from sweepers to flashlights. Check them out. Pittsburgh Pap. Hit that subscribe button.